while we're waiting on people to join, I'll just kind of start with a quick introduction here. My name's JP. I run Longevity Advice, which is a longevity content site. We focus on making cutting edge longevity science accessible and actionable for folks who may not be um, doctors or PhDs, um, but still want to know how to live kind of a healthy, long life. Um, we've also got on the call here Dr. Miles Nichols, and Dr. Miles, feel free to, if you want to say hi, but he's a founder of a functional medicine and longevity clinic here in Denver called Medicine with Heart. And he'll be kind of adding in the medical professional perspective to some of this.
Hello, everyone. Good to be here. Thanks, JP.
And then we also have Denisa Lepidatu. She's the founder of LongX, which is a um, longevity kind of educational and early career pre-professional development organization, helping people get into the longevity and biotech space that are kind of early in their careers. Um, and I should note kind of we will, at the end of this presentation, we'll be talking a little bit about something that the three of us plus a couple other folks are doing together here in Colorado in August. It's going to be kind of a very fun, interesting deep dive into living the longevity lifestyle, where we'll be kind of doing things in person at a retreat here in the mountains. So we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. We'll have kind of a special offer for folks as well if you're interested. Um, so I think we've got some good people. Let's see, making sure I've added everybody that's waiting here. Um, cool. Well, why don't we kick it off here? So we're going to be talking about the some of the top longevity foods, things that have been shown to extend lifespan in animal models, have been shown to have great health benefits in humans, and that actually have kind of research and science backing them up. There's a lot of kind of superfoods and things out there that um, don't really have a great body of evidence backing them up, but the things that we're going to be talking about today do. So let me kind of kick
And
this off here. And yeah, go on, Miles.
yeah, just at a high level, before we dive into things, I want to let people know that, this is a complex topic. Nutrition and longevity is something that there's a lot of, preclinical evidence for. There's not a ton of clinical trials, and the clinical trials are, there, but it's complex because we can look at so many different perspectives. We can look at macronutrients and macronutrient ratios, and that gives us one perspective. And then even when we dive into macronutrients, we can look at protein, and we can see two perspectives on protein. We can see that it leads to greater muscle mass and muscle synthesis, which helps to prevent sarcopenia and helps to avoid some of the falls fractures, things that we associate with early deaths. And yet we also see animal models showing protein, especially rich in methionine, being detrimental to lifespan. And so we have this very complex picture where we have to look from different perspectives. And from one perspective, the same thing might look good or bad. So as we're doing this high picture framing, I just want to sort of bring in the context of there's macronutrients, our proteins, our fats, our carbohydrates. Then we have within those macronutrients and fats, we have essential fatty acids, we have omegas, different kinds of omegas 3s, 6s, and 9s. Within carbohydrates, we have fibers, we have sugars, we have simple or complex carbohydrates. Some of them are more resistant than others. And within proteins, we have different amino acid breakdowns, different mixes of amino acids. We could spend a whole lecture just on that. We're not going to. But then we have phytonutrients, and we have these compounds that are in fruits and vegetables. And these phytonutrients have different, very interesting effects on gene expression. They have effects on things like mTOR, which relate to lifespan. So there's a lot of different perspectives that we can come at this, and so this is really looking to. I think a lot of the focus here is less on the macronutrients and more on the micronutrients and phytonutrients, the phytochemicals that are showing interesting promise, as well as a little bit of a nod towards vitamins and minerals and some of the micronutrients.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, we'll get into kind of the difference between the micro and the macro here. And I should note as well, just a logistical thing here. If you do have questions during the presentation, just pop them in the chat here. Denisa will be kind of monitoring those and making sure that we get to everybody's questions at the end. Um, Great. So yeah, we'll be kind of covering, criteria around the research and evidence, and then get into some specifics on individual foods and the research around those, and then a little bit about kind of how I at least or we apply that in kind of real life here. So real quick and a little speaking a little bit to what Miles was talking about, um, my philosophy and kind of what we've seen with research is no single dietary pattern seems to work for everybody. This is a quote from a pretty large study actually from Cell Journal, talking about how they looked around 800 people, 46,000 meals, um, and found that there was such variability in responses to those meals that they don't think any universal dietary recommendations make sense. Everybody's different. So the way I kind of look at this is uh, not all of these foods are going to be right for everybody. We vary so much in our genetics, our epigenetics, our environment, our lifestyle. What you should maybe, the way you should think about this maybe is um, all of these can be ingredients in a healthy longevity diet, and you just need to find the right way to apply those to your own circumstances. Um, so in doing this research, we looked at a lot of different foods, a lot of different food types and ingredients, and we wanted to make sure that we're getting only the best ones, only the ones that really seem to have good evidence for longevity. So these are kind of the three big buckets that we wanted to make sure um, ingredients fell into. So it has to have at least one animal study showing either median or maximum lifespan extension, either from the food or from a primary compound within it. So we'll get into this when we get to like olive oil with oleic acid and things like that. But some of these foods, the primary compound kind of was studied versus the whole food, but that still met our bar. We also wanted to see a human randomized controlled trial. These are the gold standard for studies that showed some kind of measurable health benefit in people. And then finally, some population or observational studies. These can be useful, but they tend to show correlation versus causation. So they're not seen as a high evidence level compared to a randomized controlled trial. Um, so, as I said, we did go through a lot of different foods to kind of find these. Not all of them cleared all of these bars or even any of them. Um, there are some honorable mentions, and if you do want me to send that full list, go ahead and type like a one in chat. Denisa will track that and we'll make sure that you get that list. But there's a couple here that are not on the list, but that are still probably good foods. They just didn't meet all of our criteria. Um, and speaking of, so there's a lot of foods out there that get a lot of hype. Influencers talk about them. You find them at all the health and wellness stores that we didn't find had all that great evidence for a lot of the claims made about them. The first of these is bone broth. A lot of influencers in the space, especially if you're in kind of the keto or carnivore space, really talk up bone broth as a kind of a almost a cure all. A lot of great collagen, things like that. Um, the research that we looked at suggested that most bone broth preparations don't have good bioavailable sources of collagen or collagen precursors, and they're very unreliable in terms of actual concentration of collagen sources. So a lot of the stuff that you're buying in a store or even if you're making it yourself, if you're not doing it to the exact right specifications, you're not going to be getting the benefits that are claimed for bone broth.
And one thing
Um,
I'll add about
yeah,
bone broth is just that there's dietary calcium on the micronutrients is one of the things that people are concerned about, especially postmenopausal women looking at osteoporosis, osteopenia, and especially those who are dairy sensitive and not consuming dairy as parts of their diet. And some people go to bone broth, but it's also not a great source of calcium, even though bones are a good source of calcium. You have to actually eat the bone. So, bone in sardines, for an example, would actually be a great source of
yeah,
non-dairy calcium, but bone broth would not.
yeah, 100%. And sardines are actually one of the honorable mentions that are probably great for a number of reasons.
And
So the
actually,
next, yeah,
in addition to the honorable mention, we'll just say that we did get one that is in here. I won't reveal what it is right now, but there is also a bone-in availability for it as well.
yeah,
And
for sure.
the bones you can eat when they're canned and softened. You can't sort of just go eating.
Crunch them down.
Yeah,
So the second one that didn't make the list here is goji berries. They're kind of touted as this super fruit, this superfood, but there's very uh, mixed results in terms of the research. So in some studies, they're shown to have some beneficial health impacts. However, there's a fair amount of studies showing that a concentrated version of this, especially kind of goji juice, can have adverse effects on biomarkers in humans. Um, it also was found to reduce roundworm lifespan by 50%, which is fairly significant. So this one didn't make the cut. It's again, there may be some health benefits here. It really depends on the form, but it really doesn't have the body of evidence that you would think it should have for the amount of hype that it gets.
and goji
Uh,
berries are a nightshade as well. Some people are sensitive to nightshades, some people aren't, but not everyone knows it's a nightshade. So that's something to keep in mind as well for those, especially doing something like an AIP diet or avoiding nightshades.
100%. Similarly, acai, I think that's how you pronounce it. People love their acai bowls, and it's been kind of on all these news shows as a superfood. But it's also got mixed results in the research. Especially on lifespan, so on animal models, things like that. Um, while it did seem to have potential health span effects, no lifespan prolonging effect was observed, at least in roundworms. Um, cool. So these are the foods that did make the cut. I'll be getting into each of these, so you don't have to write this down, and I'll be sending this out, this presentation as well to everybody. So no need to take notes unless you really want to. Um, first one here is avocado. A lot of good research around avocado. It's got healthy fats, it's got oleic acid, which has been shown to extend lifespan in roundworms. Just kind of a great all-around food. It can help with um, cholesterol level in terms of, I think, improving your healthy cholesterol. Um, in terms of dose, the research suggests around one half to one full avocado a day seems to have the most benefits for at least in human studies. A couple quick notes on this. Um, because it has some healthy fats in there, it helps with carotenoid absorption. So if you're eating it with um, other things like carrots, for instance, have carotenoids in them. Um, you put it in salsas with tomatoes and things. It helps the absorption of those healthy ingredients. Um, however, uh, it it has a thing called polyphenol oxidase. So when it browns, when you cut it open and the avocado browns, it's oxidizing and it's turning into polyphenol oxidase, which has been shown to decrease flavanol bioavailability of other foods. So specifically, like berries, like blueberries. Um, Cocoa powder is high in flavanols. If you mix that with an avocado that has browned or that is starting to brown because it's been exposed to the air and oxygen, you're actually fairly significantly reducing the the flavanol benefits that you're getting from that. I think the study, and this will be linked in this presentation here at the end. I think it suggested almost like 80% decrease in the flavanols that they measured when mixed with an avocado. So for this reason, I don't recommend putting it in smoothies. You want to eat it separately. Um, Again, maybe with some carrots or something like that to help with carotenoid absorption. Um, and this is bananas do the same thing. So a lot of people like putting bananas in their smoothies. Probably not a great idea if you're hoping to really get the most out of the polyphenols and flavanols in there.
And one additional piece I'll mention about avocados is great source of soluble fiber. And so it's not just fats, it's also soluble fiber as well. And then it's mixed on histamine. Some people put it in a high histamine list. Some people don't exclude it from low histamine diets. And I've certainly found that there are some people who react when it's a little over ripened, but react a little less on the histamine front when it's perfectly ripe or just not towards that over ripened perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. All right. Our second food here is blueberries. Um, so a lot of great research around blueberries. Very high in kind of healthy polyphenols. Blueberry extract and juice has been shown to extend lifespan in several different animal models. It's got all kinds of benefits on humans, including improved memory. Um, a couple things to be aware of. So you want to aim for wild blueberries versus cultivated. Wild blueberries have been shown to have higher polyphenol content. Um, and within wild berries as well, you want to look for ideally green or even early maturity berries, because kind of the younger the fruit is, the higher the polyphenol content as well. Um, the studies that I looked at suggested around 178 grams per day is kind of optimal for human health benefits. So that's about 75 to 80 berries. The way I do it, honestly, I get frozen wild blueberries. I stick them in a smoothie and kind of call it a day. Um, Frozen for blueberries and a lot of other fruits, raspberries, things like that, actually can be better than kind of fresh from the store, because as soon as a berry is picked, it starts to lose a lot of its health benefits. It kind of starts to oxidize, degrade. And frozen berries are frozen kind of very close to the source, um, fairly quickly after they've been picked. So that retains, and it's been shown that there's a study here that I'll link as well. They retain a lot more healthy polyphenol content compared to kind of the fresh, so-called fresh ones that you'll get in the store.
And one quick point I'll add about blueberries that I think it's a little known fact or a little known study, but there are some studies that look at the impact of cooking on the polyphenol content of blueberries. And I think it's commonly a misconception, or it's commonly thought that cooking typically will reduce polyphenol content, but it's actually food dependent. And in the literature related to blueberries, cooking blueberries, it does reduce a little bit the anthocyanin content, but it largely preserves the overall polyphenol bioavailability and biologic activity, and actually may improve some of the uh, bioavailability. So it's a mixed bag with cooking because you get a little less anthocyanin, but you get greater bioavailability. And so the absorption may be actually a little better of some of the compounds. So I don't think that people need to be afraid of necessarily cooking with blueberries.
Yeah, 100%. And we'll talk a little bit about cooking methods towards the end here. But yeah, very important point. It's very food dependent. All right. Next here is carrots. So carrots, in addition to having carotenoids like beta carotene, have things like carintriol, which has been shown to extend roundworm lifespan, reduce age-related frailty. A lot of good research in humans showing it does things like lower cancer risk, has other health benefits. Um, the the research that kind of we pulled for this suggests around 32 grams a day. And carrots, unlike blueberries, ideally you want to have them raw. Cooking seems to reduce a lot of the benefit. It loses a lot of these carotenoids and kind of these healthy compounds. Um, and again, kind of showing the difference here in food types. Unlike blueberries, where freezing them tends to retain a lot of the benefits, frozen carrots actually lose a lot of beta carotene from that process. So you probably want to get more of the fresh raw carrots when you're doing this, when you're eating carrots. Miles, I don't know if you had anything else on the carrot front.
Yeah, I think, people say carrots are rich in vitamin A. That's not exactly true. They are rich in carotenoids, which can become converted into vitamin A. Vitamin A is retinol. And so some people are better, some people are worse at that conversion. So it's a real bio-individual relationship between the benefits with respect to the carotenoid content on vitamin A levels. And we find some, especially people with gut issues, people with certain, liver issues, may not convert as well and may be able to get better benefit out of a preformed vitamin A. However, this is a great precursor to vitamin A.
Great. Next up is coffee. Um, there's a ton of human research on coffee, a lot of observational studies, a lot of population studies that show a lot of great health benefits, cardiovascular, cancer, mortality risk, all kinds of things, up to a fairly significant amount of coffee, up to 8 cups a day, um, and even decaf coffee. So coffee has a lot of kind of flavonoids and polyphenols, um, including chlorogenic acid here, which has been shown to increase roundworm lifespan up to 24%. Um, and so it's not just the caffeine that's causing these health benefits. While caffeine can and has been shown to cause some health benefits, it seems to be, at least in coffee, that it's a lot of these other compounds. Um, in terms of amount, 2 to 4 cups a day seems to be optimal from the human studies that we've seen. You do probably want to aim for maybe a light roast. So acrylamide is um, it's a something that's produced from the roasting process, from the Maillard process, and it is kind of a um, pro-cancer compound that has other deleterious health effects. Research has suggested that lighter roasts or even green coffee have lower levels of acrylamide. Um, so you might want to, now, I should say, all of the human studies have still shown benefit even with acrylamide present. But if you really want to optimize a light roast or potentially even green coffee, now green coffee it's what it sounds like. It's the coffee beans that have not been roasted. So it has no acrylamide, and it does have kind of the highest polyphenol content. The roasting process, you do lose some of those polyphenols. Um, but there's not a ton of research specifically on green coffee beans, at least in terms of lifespan extension or kind of human health benefits. There's a couple studies out there that suggest that it's healthy and good for you, um, but there just wasn't the deep level of evidence that roasted coffee has to make me as comfortable recommending it highly. And green coffee, when you prepare it, it's almost more like a tea compared to a coffee. It's got a different flavor profile, very different setup, but still an interesting kind of potential there. Miles, I don't know if you had
Yeah,
additional stuff here.
one thing I'll bring up about coffee is there's a large body of evidence that's starting to look at some of the compounds in respect to things like cholesterol levels, and obviously there's cardiovascular benefits. I think it's just researchers love drinking coffee, so they like to research it too. So great body of research there, which is fantastic. And interestingly, some of the volatile oil compounds may raise cholesterol, LDL cholesterol. So if you use a filter that's a paper filter, it will filter those compounds out. And there's still debate about to what extent are those compounds providing health benefits versus health detriments. However, if LDL cholesterol is a concern and is a target for an individual, then using a paper filter will actually trap some of those compounds that are potentially having the LDL raising ability. And actually, personally, myself went from using a method of coffee preparation that involved no filtration whatsoever because I thought that those oils were more favorable. After literature review, I ended up switching over to kind of a pour over with a non-bleached paper filter in order to actually reduce some of those volatile oil compounds. So there's mixed bags there. It's not that the volatile oil compounds are necessarily all bad. It's just that there is some data showing that they may have an impact on LDL cholesterol. If that's a concern, I do recommend non-bleach paper filter.
100%. Yeah. And also, my personal experience, I was using French press coffee every morning. And I did see that my LDL was increasing. So I've actually switched to green and white tea in the mornings. But yeah, paper filters, pour over, or even a machine that uses a paper filter will has been kind of shown to largely reduce those negative impacts. Awesome. Next one here is dried parsley. Um, so it's high in apigenin, which is a kind of very well studied compound. It's extended lifespan in a couple different animal models. It improves mitochondrial health. It's had other health benefits as well. Um, and interestingly, uh, the concentration is much higher in dried parsley than in fresh parsley. So the study that I looked at suggested that dry parsley has almost actually maybe more than 20 times more apigenin than fresh parsley. Um, which and I Miles, maybe you know this. I'm not sure the reason for that. Maybe it's just that you get so much more dried parsley per unit of measurement than you would fresh parsley, but it's much higher. So if you're going to use it, dried parsley is the way to go. The kind of human studies suggest around 1 gram a day, which is equivalent to about two teaspoons. So I kind of put it on everything. I put it on my olive oil shots when I take those. I put it in salads. I put it in smoothies. You can cook with it. Uh, uh, Kind of really great compound.
And sometimes these things go by weight and the water content in
Yeah.
fresh. Most of what's eliminated when we are looking at the dry versus fresh in the compounds. And so there may be other constituents to, while we're isolating aptogenin here for the dried, there may be other constituents that may have an effect that is less known. But since we're going based on the research, then dried has more of that aptogenin. However, if you're able to, sometimes you're able to consume 20 times more when it's fresh in terms of weight. So if you're able to consume that and it's fresh, there may be other things and compounds that you get. So it's not so cut and dry
Yeah. Yeah,
with
and
dry.
again, easy enough to mix into smoothies or salads and get a large amount even with the fresh parsley. Cool. Next here is garlic. This may not endear you to your significant other, but it's a lot of good research on um, kind of the health protective effects of garlic consumption. So, eating garlic more than 5 times a week associated with longer survival in aged adults. Aged garlic extract specifically has a lot of research suggesting anti-cancer effects, other health benefits. It's been shown to extend mice lifespan by up to over 11%. Um, a couple things on the kind of preparations here. Raw is ideal because you're preserving a lot of the healthy compounds within there, where heating it can destroy those. I know it's a little tough to eat raw garlic. You can probably kind of cover up the spice there by putting it into smoothies or salads or mixing it with other things. Um, if you are going to cook it, however, a very interesting study found that crushing it first or chopping it and exposing it to air for a little over 10 minutes, um, preserves a lot of those compounds better prior to cooking. So ideally, what you would do is if you're preparing a meal, chop it up, crush it, let it sit while you do everything else, and then kind of add it in at the end to heat it or cook it, and that'll make sure that you're keeping a lot of the healthy benefits.
Yeah, and just to give people a little more of the science for how that works, there's a compound called allin, and allin is converted into allicin. Allicin is the main antimicrobial compound. It's a thiol based compound that has a lot of health benefits to it. And because there's an enzyme called allinase, which is heat sensitive, that allinase combines together with allin, but they're stored in different parts of the clove. And so if you just take garlic and you cook with it immediately, that heat sensitive enzyme allinase is broken down. It doesn't then get the opportunity to mix with allin to create allicin, allicin being that main antimicrobial compound. With the crushing, what happens is the allinase has a chance to interact with allin to create allicin. Allicin then is heat stable. So, because allicin is heat stable as the antimicrobial compound, that 10 minutes gives it a chance to react and create that stable, that heat stable allicin compound. So, then when you cook with it, you get that allicin at meaningful concentration. So, that's how that works.
Love it. All right. And we'll go a little quicker here because I'm just mindful of the time. Um, so next on the list here is lentils. Lentils, while they are a carb for folks that are kind of interested in the keto or carnivore type diets, they are a complex carb, so they have kind of a lower glycemic index than simple carbohydrates like white bread or sugar, um, because they do include a lot of good fiber. And there's a lot of great research in humans that it can improve cholesterol, reduce inflammation. They're very high. They're a great source of spermidine, which is a compound that's got a lot of lifespan research in animal models, shown to extend lifespan in mice, other animal models. Um, uh, Plus, it tastes great. The form of it that has been shown to have kind of high spermidine is a lentil soup. So if you're looking to add this to your diet, soup is a great place to start. I also love cooked lentils, topped with like roasted veggies and maybe a little probiotic yogurt drizzled with some olive oil. Very tasty. About 140 grams a day is what showed um, health effects in humans. 140 grams of lentils, not of spermidine, um, uh, which I think is around a cup. I'd have to confirm that. I'm not great on my metric. Uh, but yeah, so great source of spermidine here, and we'll cover another one of those later as well in the talk.
And the only thing I'll say about lentils is just that, black lentils have a little bit more of certain kinds of phytonutrients in them.
Yeah, 100%. Mushrooms, uh, tons of great research around mushrooms and health. They, this is really something that I think deserves the name superfood, is mushrooms. Now, specific types of mushrooms, particularly reishi and oyster mushrooms, um, seem to have a lot of great research around lifespan extension. So as I note here, reishi mushrooms have extended roundworm lifespan by 26%, which is actually the highest figure of any food on this list. Um, uh, yeah, pink oyster mushrooms as well. A lot of great research in humans on mushroom consumption and health benefits, particularly around brain health, cancer prevention. Um, about 11 grams a day in terms of amount, which I think is maybe around like half a cup or so of mushrooms, maybe a cup a day, probably closer to half a cup. Seemed to have the best anti-cancer effects in a breast cancer study. I should note in that study, it was actually dose dependent. So the more mushrooms you ate per day, the lower your risk of, or kind of the more protection you had against breast cancer. So it may be that more than 11 grams a day is actually ideal. I think they only looked at up to 13 grams a day, but probably can't hurt you to have even more. Grilling or microwaving seems to best preserve the healthy compounds within mushrooms compared to other preparation forms like boiling or oven baking. So worth considering that when you prepare them. Cool. Olive oil, this is one of my favorites. A lot of great compounds in olive oil. I mentioned oleic acid in avocados. Same thing here in olive oil. That's one of its main compounds. Um, has been shown to extend roundworm lifespan. It's also a huge part of the Mediterranean diet, which a lot of people surmise may be kind of primarily driving the longevity effects of that diet. Um, in terms of human research, it's been shown to have a lot of great health effects. A study on, I believe it was Spanish men, on kind of Mediterranean diet patterns showed that around 2 to 4 tablespoons a day of olive oil was ideal. You do probably want to take it raw, and you want extra virgin olive oil. I do have a whole article on how to select the best olive oil and kind of what to look for. Ideally, you want it to be extra virgin. Um, you want it to be in a container, unlike in this photo here, that's not clear glass because olive oil will oxidize with light, and it'll become rancid. You want to make sure you're looking at a pick date, that the bottle has a pick date of within the last year. Um, I'm trying to think, a couple other things.
Typically early
Yeah,
harvest
you
has
want,
a
yeah,
little higher polyphenol content.
yeah, exactly. Um, and you may want to consider the source as well in terms of countries. So, um, some Mediterranean countries, they'll say it's extra virgin, but they don't have a lot of great controls on, um, whether it's mixed with other like seed oils and things. California actually has a law that if it's 100% California olives, it has to meet certain kind of strict standards. So that's the safest, is to find kind of pure California extra virgin olive oil. Um, uh, but yeah, you just want to be aware of kind of where you're getting it. And I can send out the that link to that article, which gets into this a little more in depth. I honestly like to take shots of olive oil. I'm kind of weird like that. Um, cool. Next on the list here is oysters. So oysters have a ton of great omega-3 fatty acids, a lot of other nutrients. They're very nutrient dense. So zinc, vitamin B, selenium. Uh, raw oysters kind of have the most of those nutrients. And within that, Pacific oysters uh, have been shown to have kind of higher omega-3 counts than Eastern or Atlantic oysters. So you might want to aim for that. There is a nuance here. Vibrio is a bacteria that um, can cause kind of pretty dangerous infections. About 100 Americans die every year from it. Not all from oysters, from other sources as well, but oysters can get this Vibrio bacterium in the water. Especially during May to October, you might want to avoid raw oysters, and especially if you're immunocompromised, you might want to cook them.
And if you are going to eat them during the summer months, then choosing higher, like more north in
Right,
latitude is going to
exactly.
be colder waters, less likelihood.
Great. All right. Pomegranate, uh, another great um, ingredient here. So it's high. A lot of people think pomegranate's high in urolithin A. It's actually high in urolithin A precursors. So a couple compounds that turn into urolithin A in the body. And this has been shown to protect against all sorts of health issues, cancer, inflammation, aging. Pomegranate juice and pomegranate extract have been shown to extend roundworm lifespan. Uh, the kind of interesting thing here is it may actually be better to buy commercial prepared pomegranate juice than to just have the raw fruit, because the peels actually contain some of the highest levels of the healthy polyphenols, these urolithin A precursors, and a commercial preparation actually presses the whole fruit. It includes those peels, so it gets out a lot of those healthy compounds. So, I'm sure you see this in the store, palm, stuff like that. Those may actually be more beneficial than buying the fresh fruit.
And although it's bitter, if you do eat a little bit of the pith with the fresh fruit, you get some compounds in the pith. So that it's bitter, but I don't mind cutting a pomegranate in half and then a quarter, and then just biting it and
Yeah,
eating a little pith with it.
yeah, 100%. All right, and looking at time here, I'm gonna go a little quicker. So next we've got rosemary. This is um, been shown to extend lifespan in a ton of different animal models. It's a main ingredient of certain blue zone diets. Um, Rosmarinic acid, I think, has got a lot of great research around it as well. It's been shown to activate AMPK, which is kind of the cellular repair pathway within the body, which is associated with longevity. It's also, you may want to look at, if you're growing it, certainly rosemary flowers are also kind of highly concentrated in healthy compounds. Um, and I kind of just found this out. It was shown to protect against some of the negative effects of acrylamide in coffee. So if you're having, like if you really like that dark roast coffee, you might consider having some rosemary, maybe either before or after, with some food or rosemary tea, something like that, to cut down on the negative impacts of that. Um, Next, we got wheat germ. So I mentioned spermidine before with the lentils. Wheat germ is actually, I think, a higher source of spermidine even than lentils. Um, Again, a lot of great health benefits in humans, lifespan extension in a ton of animal models. Um, if you are going to, you can eat it raw. It's perfectly healthy to eat it raw, and you can, sprinkle it on yogurt or something. If you are going to cook it, especially if you're like boiling it in a porridge or something like that, you want to make sure that you're consuming everything, because when you cook it, you are pulling some of that spermidine out into the cooking liquid. So if you're cooking it in water or milk or cream or something like that, you want to make sure you're actually consuming everything that it's cooked in, so that you're still getting that health benefit. And about 6 grams a day seem to be a good dose of wheat germ for health benefits in humans. Next, one of my favorites here, white tea. So I did a big deep dive on tea, which again I can share for folks that are interested, and found that white peony tea specifically, and also a green gyokuro tea, seem to have the highest catechin content. This is EGCG, which are kind of theorized to be the longevity promoting compounds within green and white tea, shown to extend lifespan again in lots of animal models. A lot of great research around this. White tea also is apparently good for skin health and tooth health. Um, and white tea is literally the same as green and black tea. It's just harvested earlier, so it's kind of a younger uh, version of the tea tree that you're harvesting. And so it's had, a lot of people are concerned about heavy metals in teas, especially Chinese teas, not so much Japanese teas. But when you harvest it earlier, it has less chance to absorb those heavy metals into the leaves, so you're less likely to get that. In terms of preparation, you want to steep it 2 to 3 minutes. Anything more than that, and you might be, getting some heavy metals kind of coming out, and it can become more bitter, and you're really getting the benefits from those first 2 to 3 minutes, anyways. 3 to 5 cups a day in human studies seems to be kind of the optimal dose. And interestingly, you can add some lemon juice that increases the bioavailability of some of these catechins like EGCG, and helps your body uptake more of those. And then finally, wild salmon. Uh, Again, similarly to oysters, a lot of omega-3s, a lot of great research. It's extended lifespan in a ton of different animal models. I have a dog. I make sure he gets salmon, weekly. Um, if you're gonna cook it, oven baking tends to be the best in terms of preserving kind of those healthy omega-3s and polyphenol or compounds. Um, and you want to look for wild Pacific sockeye salmon. Its migratory route avoids a lot of pollutants in the ocean, So you're not going to be getting as much, kind of negative, um, mercury and other things like that. You probably do want to limit it to about one meal a week, based on a study I saw that suggests that um, too much salmon, even wild salmon, can have some precancerous compounds in it, and so to kind of maximize the risk benefit, you want to aim for maybe no more than one meal a week with salmon.
And there is canned wild salmon bone-in available, and the bone-in will get that calcium. You can consume those bones when it's canned in preparation.
Yes, 100%. Cool. Um, okay, so I'm gonna kind of go quickly here. This is just a little bit about some of the reasoning behind these. Um, in terms of cooking, I'm gonna do 1 minute on this, and then we'll get to questions. Uh, General idea here: raw is generally better. A lot of these compounds are sensitive to heat, so where you can, try to go raw. Um, a lot of the good stuff, your mother was right. The crust, the skin, actually has some of the best compounds. Um, if you are going to cook, slow and low is better than fast and high. So high cooking can kind of caramelize things and produce what's called advanced glycation end products, which are um, pro-cancer, pro-inflammation, not great. And then, yeah, oven baking, sous vide, microwaving, surprisingly, actually tend to preserve some of the most healthy compounds. And then frying and boiling, not so great. Um, we talked a little bit about this. So just in terms of my day to day, so I practice intermittent fasting, so I tend to start with a cup of green or white tea. I've actually just been drinking, if you've seen, a nice um, green sencha that my sister brought back from Japan. Then I'll do a lunch that's a smoothie that has a lot of these ingredients in it. You can kind of read these here. And then my dinner, I like to have kind of a good healthy protein along with some great veggies and complex carbs, using a lot of these ingredients. Um, Quick admission here: I don't always live up to the research that I do. I still like to kind of cook sometimes a little too much. A hack for those advanced glycation end products that I mentioned is actually supplementing with glycine right before you eat those. There's been some studies suggesting that glycine can mitigate a lot of those AGEs and kind of the negative impacts of them. Great. All right. So we've got about maybe 9, 10 minutes here for questions. So I will uh, put that out to everybody. And Denise, I don't know if you've been able to track some of them here in the chat.
While we're waiting for questions to come in, just also mentioning that, there is a retreat coming up, and we'll talk about that right at the end. Walter,
Right.
looks like you're raising your hand.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, one thing that's important to for everybody to understand is that the Maillard process happens, what, at about 250? So boiling precludes it. Boiling is
Hmm.
very good in that sense. In fact, frying almost always goes well over that point.
Yes.
So anytime you see something turning brown, bad idea.
Yes. Yeah, and I
Um,
should say the downside with boiling is if you're throwing out the water or
Good point.
what you're
Let's
boiling
use
it
that
in.
it off. Like, for instance, if you cook beets in water, the friggin' water tastes delicious.
Right, exactly.
But
Yeah, add it to your smoothie or mix it with some
well,
tea or
you
something.
shrink
Yeah.
it. And then I'm glad you brought up the smoothie because I got a question about the avocados. I probably missed it. I'm really happy to find out. I didn't know that the browning of the avocado, like if you cut it in half and put it in the
Mhm.
fridge and come back a day later, that you should probably skin that off and throw it away. But why does putting it in a fresh green, perfect avocado, why does it hurt putting it in a smoothie?
It so the study that I saw suggested that putting it in a smoothie does reduce the flavanol compound, or content of that fruit smoothie. And I believe my Let me see if I have it. Actually, I might be able to pull up that study exactly, but I think it's because the process of blending it is then exposing that there's a lot more surface area then of the avocado that becomes exposed to oxygen, becomes oxidized, and so that's having the negative effect. Um, yeah, here we see. So there's a 2023 study, Impact of Polyphenol Oxidase on the Bioavailability of Flavanols in Fruit Smoothies. Um, and it found, let's see, concentration of flavanols in a high PPO smoothie was about 96 nanomoles per liter versus one without, which was 680. So it's fairly significant difference.
I wonder if that's mitigated by the fact that smoothies are usually very cold, which of course slows down reactions. But okay,
Possibly.
another thing,
Yeah.
one last thing, I don't want to hog it, but I got to tell you, about 5 years ago, I went to a major conference and I saw someone that everybody here knows, very famous advocate, tell me and the rest of the crowd that 3 glasses of wine per day was optimum. Well, I know from experience that that wipes me out. I can't read it.
Uh-huh.
I can't believe it's good for you. Well, now that individual, who I won't name, has reversed his position. But the point here is, when you're talking about commodities, you must put your skeptic's hat on very tightly. And that includes
100%.
coffee. I take coffee every day, but I don't fool myself into thinking it's good for me.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And again, method really matters and preparation and all of that. It's all very nuanced.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's see. Diego's got a question. I cook vegetables in soups. Believe the process was good to extract the benefits. But after hearing about carrots, I wonder if that degrading happens to every vegetable in a soup. Um, Miles, you may have a different kind of point on this. So the stuff that I saw seems to suggest that as long as you're again kind of consuming the medium with which you are cooking those vegetables, you're still getting those benefits. Now, the heat may degrade that. Like again with carrots, the heat may degrade some of those things, um, but they're kind of leaching out into the medium, I think, and you're still getting that. I don't know, Miles, if you have
Yeah.
anything to add.
Yeah. I mean, one example is potassium. Potassium decreases substantially when you boil, but if you consume the liquid, it's in the liquid. So the reduction, for example, on meats, when you cook meats, the liquid for cooking meats has a lot of that potassium. Potatoes have a lot of potassium in them, but when you boil them, you get rid of a lot of that potassium in the potato, but it goes into the water. So if you consume the water, you actually get the potassium. So there's definitely, there may be some degradation, but if you consume the water, you're largely mitigating for a lot of that.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah. Any other questions before we move on here?
Well, I guess I'll say one more thing, which is that, a typical creature of all types has tens of thousands of different chemicals in it. It's extremely complicated and with a lot of interactions, almost none of which have been explored. It's
100%.
a there's a lot of rumors and a lot of things that have come and gone in my fairly long lifetime. So, you know, stay skeptical.
100%. Great. All right. Well,
I'll tell a quick story about that. My
yeah.
dad, he's who was a doctor, sort of, our household got rid of butter and got margarine. And then when the trans fats in margarine research came out, we got rid of margarine and brought back butter. It was whole milk turned to skim milk and then back to whole milk. It just, the research evolves, and we definitely hold skepticism and also pay attention to the data as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
listen
And
to grandma.
grandma's always right. And listen to your body. I mean, again, the individual variability is so important. We're so different genetically, epigenetically, environmentally, lifestyle wise, that you really should be tracking how your body is reacting to all of these things and kind of keeping up with that. Which is a nice segue into kind of what we want to talk about here at the end. So if you are interested in this type of thing, if you want to maybe go a little deeper and kind of do this on an experiential level, we are running a longevity retreat here in Colorado this August, 6th to 9th. It's in a gorgeous venue
Mhm.
in Granite, Colorado, right near Twin Lakes. Um, and Dr. Miles has actually developed a custom biomarker panel that everybody will be getting ahead of time. A lot of markers that you're not getting at your annual physical, kind of some very specific things that he uses to target some great advice. You know, we'll be getting everybody hooked up with a continuous glucose monitor when they arrive. Uh, we'll be having some great kind of presentations by researchers and doctors, including Dr. Miles. Um, and then we'll be kind of living this throughout 4 days. So all the diet, you know, the exercise, sleep protocols, sauna, all of that will be optimized around the research on longevity. And then finally, you'll be working with Dr. Miles and his team, and you'll actually be leaving with a custom personalized longevity protocol that you take home and you can implement kind of afterwards, and we'll have uh, uh, a kind of community as well, a unique community of everybody that's attended to help people after the retreat and make sure that you are kind of able to implement this stuff and you know continue to ask questions and help with all of that. So we are doing a special discount for webinar attendees if you're interested. Um, and so if you are and you want to learn a little bit more about that, what that entails, please book a call with me. I'm happy to kind of talk through, you know, not just the retreat, but you know, your health goals in general and kind of what you're looking for and you know, how we might be able to help. Totally free. Doesn't have to take long at all. You can do it at this link here. Just scan it in your phone, and again, I'll send this out to everybody after the call. And you will get a free guide on your personal longevity baseline, which is looking at some of those biomarkers that Dr. Miles has put together for this retreat. That again, you're probably not getting in your annual physical, and why they're important, and kind of what they tell you about different aspects of your health and longevity. So
Yes, so this is a great opportunity to sort of be able to get some more personalized. It's hard to give these generalized recommendations, but when you're wearing CGM and you see how your blood sugar responds to something, it's a little bit different. When you see your biomarkers and where they're at, there's a lot of customization that can occur and individualization that's not possible when speaking generally from the research. So, you know, I found interesting things like wearing CGM and eating rice, I spike real high. But if I prepare that rice in a different way, where I add some uh, fat into the rice and then cool it overnight in the fridge and then eat it the next day, it's very different on blood sugar response. So it's even the same food can be very different depending on the context and how it's eaten and how it's prepared.
yeah, getting that data is super important. And this is an intimate retreat. We're limiting it to only 20 people. The researchers, presenters, and doctors are all staying on site, so you'll have access to them the whole time. You know, you'll be sitting with them at meals. You can ask questions, really do deep dives, and kind of understand things. So you'll have a lot of access that you wouldn't have at a typical longevity event. And we're really excited. I visited the venue a couple weeks ago. It's really cool. They're building a 10-person sauna. It's a gorgeous setting. A lot of great access to hikes. Hopefully, we can find some high polyphenol wild berries around as well. And the place itself is very luxurious. It's got a full gym. It's got a full kitchen. Um, so it's gonna be a great time. I'm really excited about it. We'd love to have you there. Um, Please go ahead and book a call. And otherwise, we're about out of time. So thank you for joining us. Hope this was helpful. I will send all of the follow-up information here out in an email.
Thanks, everyone.
All righty. Take care.